Put up with that mighty cake, bitch, that mighty Drake. Right now, past 5 years up now. You bound to die. I just woke up, got bands today. What got rest today? Put up with that mighty cake.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another tier list. Today we have a Bluebloods tier list as far as college football programs go all time. In case you haven't noticed, Andy Staples, he is a big time sports writer. He made a list, a graphic that basically said who college football's blue bloods are and who the contenders to be blue bloods are. Now, I'm going to basically list who I think the contenders are, who the blue bloods are, based on the teams that Andy Staples put out. So if you see your team in here, that means your team made Andy Staples blue blood or contender list. Basically, what I'm going to do is give my list and then compare it to Andy's list. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting off first, we have the Auburn Tigers, and with Auburn, Auburn, they have been okay, historically, nothing really crazy. They do have 2 national titles, 2010 and 1957, I believe. Either way, it was a long time ago. It was a long time before Auburn saw another national title. 2010 being with Cam Newton, of course. And yeah, man, it's just Auburn, definitely not a blue blood. As far as all-time wins go, I gotta go check that out. So as far as wins go, when considering all 3 divisions of NCAA, Auburn falls 18th. They're tied for 18th as far as all of college football goes. That's considering Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, all that put together. They're number 18 all time in wins. So they're outside of the top 10 in wins. Outside of the top 15, crack the top 20. I don't think that makes them a blue blood or even a contender for a blue blood. You only have 2 rings and you're outside of the top 15 or top 10 as far as all-time wins go. And it's also just very hard to compete with some of the other schools and programs that were on the list. The Florida Gators, they are really another example of, they're 28th all time in wins. They have 3 national titles in recent history. 1996, 2006, and 2008. So that's 3 national titles. Not a whole lot of historic success. They did have successful years with Steve Spurrier at quarterback, and then in the 90s with Steve Spurrier as the coach. So while they're not necessarily a blue blood as far as being a contender goes, don't really have historical dominance. Not very high on the all-time wins list. Unfortunately, I am going to have to put them in the no, but they are just barely outside of that contenders list. They've been good recently. They do have recent success. Recently good, more so because, 2020 was a good year for Florida. Could have and should have made the playoff, and Marco Wilson decided to throw a shoe. So, yeah. But outside of the 3 main categories that really, shows what it takes to be a blue blood, I don't think Florida is in that as far as historic dominance, all-time wins, and national championships. The Miami Hurricanes, so they have 5 national titles. They were dominant in the late 80s, early 90s, fell off, and then made a big comeback in the early 2000s, also fielding the greatest college football team of all time, in my opinion, in the 2001 Hurricanes. Then you have, they've really fallen off lately. Some people have them as a blue blood just because the number of rings they have, because they do have 5 rings. But in comparison to some of the other programs, I don't know. As far as historical dominance goes, don't have that. They don't have historical dominance. They, as far as like all time historical dominance, like they were bad in the 60s, awful in the 70s, weren't great the first half of the 80s, and then became, a powerhouse in the 80s. So in the late 80s, early 90s. And they've also had multiple fall offs where they fell off in the 90s, came back in the 2000s, fell off after, fell off in like the mid to late 2000s, were decent in the 2010s, but then fell off again in the late 2010s and currently falling off now. So because of that many fall offs, they're not necessarily a blue blood. But I will say they are a contender because they do have 5 rings, and 5 rings does go a long way. And also put the greatest college football team on the field of all time. The Oklahoma Sooners, they are number 6 all time in wins. So 100% of blue blood. They have recent success. They also have historic dominance. So 50s, Oklahoma was good. 60s, they were good. 70s, 80s, talented teams in the 90s, good teams in the 2000s. They were in the 2010s, college football playoff contenders. Didn't necessarily do much or do well at all in the playoff, except for that, one game against Georgia. But outside of that, they're definitely a blue blood. They check off all 3 boxes. 100% Oklahoma is a blue blood. Tennessee Volunteers, they are Tennessee, they are 14th all time in wins, so they are in the top 15. They don't really have a whole lot of rings to show for it either. Outside of like the Peyton Manning and T. Martin years. They fielded some good teams, especially like way back in the past. But as far as like recent success, they've been recent good, not necessarily like national title successful or even contenders. Haven't made a playoff appearance or anything. So yeah, contender. USC. They are 13th all time in wins. They do have the national titles to back it up. Top 15 in wins, national titles, historic dominance, 2 out of the 3 boxes. They haven't necessarily been recently good, but 60s they were good, 70s they were good. Fielded some good teams in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Dominant teams then. So USC is a blue blood. The LSU Tigers. LSU were listed as contenders. They have 4 national titles all time. I think they have, one from way back when. Got 2003, 2007, and 2019. My opinion, they fielded the second greatest football team of all time with the 2019 LSU Tigers. So I'm going to put them at contender, lack of rings, and then LSU is 17th all time. So outside of the top 15 in all-time wins, and not really a whole lot of historic dominance. They do have recent success, and yeah, I'll give them that. The Clemson Tigers, recent success, definitely. Historic success, not so much. I see that they are number 20, so barely made the top 20 in all-time wins. They are top 20. Recent success, not a whole lot of historic success. They weren't historically dominant. They did win a ring in 81, but contender as a blue blood because recent wins, so I will have them as a contender, but not necessarily a blue blood yet. Florida State Seminoles, they are Florida State. They won a ring in 93, 99, 2013. They fielded some good teams. Not a whole lot of historic dominance before Bobby Bowden. Recent success. Yeah, they've had some recent success, but I I think they're okay enough to be a contender all time. Well, here's the thing. All time wins. I don't think Florida State even cracked the top 100. Now, I do think Florida State did have some sanctions put on them, so wins were revoked. But fortunately, I think that's a no. Actually, three rings. You do have recent success, so three rings isn't a lot, and then recent success has been, you're just now, getting good, like as of last season. So you're finally getting good again. I don't think that's blue blood. That's a blue blood school, but like they're almost a contender, in my opinion. Notre Dame, um, historically dominant team for sure, dominant program. Notre Dame is number 4 all time in wins. So 100% a blue blood, top 5, automatic bid to be a blue blood. Penn State. Now, here's the thing with Penn State, right? I know they had some wins revoked, but only 2 national titles, 1982, 1986. Fuck Joe Paterno, by the way. But yeah, yeah. I don't know. So they have 2 national titles. I know they had some wins revoked. It's just a lot, It's tough for me to have them as a blue blood. They I don't think they had wins taken away. I don't know. I don't think that went to Penn State. I don't think they had wins taken away, but they're number 8 all time in wins. So that's top 10. So definitely a contender. But the 2 rings, I think that keeps them outside of being a blue blood. I think I was thinking of somebody else as far as wins getting revoked, but yeah. Penn State, they're a contender, 2 rings only. Is really hurting them. So yeah. The Michigan Wolverines, blue blood, the winningest program of all time. Just won a national title last season, so they have all-time wins, historic dominance, and recent success all put together. 100%, they fulfill the formula of being a blue blood. The Alabama Crimson Tide, okay. Most national titles, up there in wins, recent success. The Oregon Ducks, okay, so here's okay. Andy, just the fact that they were even on your list is absolutely asinine. Granted, Oregon is the only team on here that has not won a national title, that has not won one. And somehow they're even up here with any of these institutions. Recent success, they've been good, gone to national title games. That's fine, dandy, cool. They haven't won any rings. Historically, not dominant. I don't know if they cracked the top 100 in wins. I know Andy he's got to sell stuff. So he's got to say some crazy shit so people click on it. He makes money. Company he works for makes money. He's a writer. That's basically how that works. That was his crazy take. Not going for it. The Texas Longhorns, they are number 4 all time in wins. Recent success, they just made the college football playoff. Historic dominance, they have that. they are a blue blood. All right, here's the most controversial part of this video. All right, this is my team right here. If you watch any other videos on my channel, you'll know I'm a Georgia fan. I do not do anything to hide that. Big Georgia fan through and through. There's always been this big argument between if Georgia, counts as a blue blood, especially recently, since they won 2 rings back to back, and just a lot of recent success has, kind of started the conversation. Now, overall, do I think Georgia is a blue blood? As a Georgia fan, I'm going to say that they are not. They are a contender for a blue blood, but they are not quite there. I know some of my, the guys in Georgia, they're going to be pissed about me saying this. Some of my fellow Georgia fans are going to be mad. But if there's one thing I hate to do, there is one thing I truly hate to do, is break it to you. So 1942, we got historically Georgia has 4 rings. So 1942 they have one, 1980, 2021, and 2022. After what, that 1 ring during or after World War II. I mean, yeah, I mean, what during World War II, you won a ring. So what the hell? And then 50s weren't necessarily weren't anything to talk about. 60s weren't anything to talk about. 70s, won a SEC championship, I think, in 78. 1980, wins a ring. The early 80s, dominant years. 3 state Sugar Bowls. Should have probably won 2 national titles in that span, but didn't. Fun fact, 81, Georgia lost to Clemson, who ended up winning that season. Then you got 2021, 2022. The 90s were disgusting with Ray Goff, and then the 2000s started to kind of make a comeback, but nothing not national powerhouse or anything like that. So Georgia, I hate to break it to you, but you're not a blue blood yet. We're not blue bloods yet. Just don't have historic powerhouse, and we just don't have enough recent success. You got to do more than unfortunately, with some of the schools you have to compete with, you got to win more than 2 rings recently. Like, it might take like 4 or 5 before Georgia ends up being considered a true blue blood. But yeah, just unfortunately, just not there yet. Ohio State, definitely a blue blood. They are in the top 10 for all-time wins. And then they are in the top 5. They are number 3 for all-time wins. And then Nebraska, definitely. All-time wins, rings, historic dominance. I mean, 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, this is the only team to probably have 2 of the greatest college football teams of all time. 1971 and 95. 95 honestly has a chance, in my opinion, of being number 2 behind 2001 Miami and probably overcoming LSU. I haven't necessarily done the breakdown on it, but hey, top 3, probably tied for 2. So, but overall, this is my list. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe. The whole 9, do that. And be sure to check out some of the podcast episodes, some of the other stuff we have on the channel. Check out some of the other tier lists we've done. Done a conference by conference tier list, basically predicting where each team is going to lie for 2024. Then the SEC, the Big 10, ACC, and that Big 12 video is coming. I already recorded it first, but was going to post it a couple days ago, and then listened to it back, heard the audio was terrible. So got to re-record that, get that out there for y'all. The Big 12 video is coming with tier list, and then also going to do the NFL. So be sure to like and subscribe if you want to check out some of the future stuff, some of that stuff I just mentioned. Gaming channel may be coming out soon, but until then, y'all stay dirty, stay safe, stay dirty, stay dangerous. Catch y'all next time.
In the aftermath, I'm always gonna get that text asking me where we is. Like, baby, go get some rest, cause darling, I don't wish you well. When you ain't with me, I need you sick to your stomach, it can't stand on your feet. I know it's your own, but I just gotta be honest.